All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the SJP File Sports Report. I'm your host, SJP, and today we're going to be talking about, once again, the NBA playoffs, NFL, Julio Jones getting traded into the Tennessee Titans, and Jake Paul taking shots at UFC President Dana White. Some well-deserved shots, I might add, but we'll get to that during the show. Once again, here's Ellis, Clear My Mind.
I just can't let you go. Lord knows that I've tried to. You said I was the only one. No one likes being lied to. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all the bridges between us.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode, I think it's episode 40. I stopped numbering the episodes for some inexplicable reason. But the last week or so has been, it's been a couple days since my last episode. And we got some news back in the NFL. We are back. NFL talk for the first time in I want to say 3-4 weeks. Actually, might even be longer than that. I haven't really been keeping up with the NFL after the draft. Doesn't really interest me. The whole Tim Tebow situation, I'm not even going to comment on that. Let's go. All right, the Atlanta Falcons trade Hall of Fame wide receiver, first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver probably, Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans for a second round pick. Julio is, 32 years old. He's making roughly about $15.3 million this year. The Falcons traded him for, honestly, one specific reason: budget. I know, for the professional wrestling fans, WWE's cutting a lot of guys for, budgetary reasons, which is crap. Everybody knows it's crap. Budgetary reasons, my fucking ass. They're not cutting guys for budgetary reasons. They're cutting guys because they're probably going to end up selling the company. But in Atlanta, it was because of budgetary reasons. In the NFL is a hard cap league. It is not the NBA. It is not a soft cap league. It is a hard cap. You cannot go over the cap in the NFL. And the Atlanta Falcons were a good little over. I think they were about $15.5 million over the cap. When they cut, trading Julio Jones puts them $200,000, I believe, under the cap, which is just enough. They did draft well this year. I wouldn't say draft well because you don't really know how good these guys are going to be yet. Some of these wide receivers and tight ends that they got in the draft. But trading Julio Jones was the right business decision for them. I don't know if it's the right football decision for them. Julio Jones is, once again, a standout. Wasn't very healthy this year, but he's Julio Jones. He'll be fucking fine. And putting Julio Jones across from A.J. Brown in Tennessee, putting him across, against A.J. Brown this year, I believe. I'm trying to look up his stats. This year, he had 51 catches for 771 yards, 15.1 average per catch, 3 touchdowns. Last year, 99 catches, almost 1,400 yards. The year before that, 113 catches, almost 1,700 yards. The year before that, 88 catches, 1,400 yards. The year before that, 83 catches, 1,400 yards. The year before that, 136 catches, 1,800 yards. The year before that, 104 catches, almost 1,600 yards. Man, Julio Jones has played in the NFL, I want to say, it's been about 9 years, and he's had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000-yard seasons. Most of his seasons are at least about 1,300 or more, and like 6 of those 7 are 1,300 or more. I mean, he's just an absolute beast, an absolute freak of nature. He's already got 12,000 receiving yards in his career, 800 catches, 60 touchdowns. He's a Hall of Famer. Essentially, I would say first ballot, honestly. Probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he goes down. But, you know, putting him right next to A.J. Brown in Tennessee. A.J. Brown, another big, strong wide receiver. AJ's been in the NFL 2 years, 2,000-yard seasons. His rookie year, 52 catches, 1,000 yards. His sophomore year, 70 catches, a little over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. He had 8 touchdowns his rookie year. Fantastic rookie wide receiver, fantastic young wide receiver. Putting him across the field on the other side of Julio Jones is going to be a monster, especially with King Henry in the backfield, out here just trucking dudes. What he did to what was it, Josh Norman was a crime. That was a crime. Wouldn't let that shit happen to me though, but that was a crime. That was a crime. That might have been murder. That he might have killed Josh Norman's career right there, because he sent Josh Norman into outer space, sent him into a different galaxy, had him sliding across the air, had him looking like he was throwing karate kicks, like he was jumping off the top rope, throwing an elbow. He was done. I will never look at Josh Norman the same way ever again. Bills Mafia should disown him. Bills Mafia should disown him immediately for what King Henry did to his ass. But that's enough about said. But what AJ Brown tweeted out was right, man. You're gonna have to decide who you're gonna put CB1 on. Are you gonna put CB1 on AJ Brown, or are you gonna put CB1 on Julio Jones? Doesn't really matter, because whoever CB2 is gonna get the other guy, and you're gonna have a long day, bruh. You're gonna have a long day, and you're not really gonna be able to stack the box against Derrick Henry. You couldn't really stack the box against Derrick Henry with AJ Brown on the outside, but now with AJ Brown and Julio Jones on the outside, as long as Julio stays healthy. I know Julio's a little older in age, but if you can keep AJ Brown and Julio Jones healthy and on the field, Tannehill's a very good quarterback. He's I would say above average starter in this league. Is he a star? No, but he's an above average serviceable starter. You just don't need it. You need him to just not make a mistake. He was great in the play action last year. So what I would say is, you can't really double anybody. You're just going to have to play solid man defense, because if you try and stack the box, Tannehill is going to audible, play action, go over the top to either A.J. Brown or Julio Jones, and next thing you know, you're down 21 points in the first quarter because you tried to stop King Henry. And even though the Titans don't have the fantastic defense, they might be able to give you a serviceable defense, but to put Julio Jones on this team, they're probably going to have to restructure some deals, but it doesn't really matter. They are going for it, and this is what I love to see. This is what I love to see in the NFL. Whether they're not a big market team, they're a small market team out there in Tennessee. I believe they play in Nashville, Tennessee. It's either Nashville or Memphis. I don't remember which one, but you know, they're a small market team. It's like, hey, we got a Hall of Fame running back, a potential star number 1 wide receiver in A.J. Brown. Let's put another number 1 wide receiver on the other side of the field with him in Hall of Famer, you know, Julio Jones, soon to be Hall of Famer Julio Jones. And we got a good quarterback. We got a good offensive line. Let's put this team together so we can get a chance to win a championship. Green Bay. Yeah, I'm talking to Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, man. Yo, y'all had Aaron Rodgers for almost 20 years, and you only got 1 Super Bowl. For some reason, you got to take chances. I know that they like to build through the draft, and that's great. That's great, and probably like for your long-term health and success, but you got to take chances. Look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay took a chance getting Tom Brady. It's about winning. Hell, NBA teams do it all the time. You got to take a chance. To hell with the future. To hell with that. Go trade all your draft picks and get a fucking superstar. Or if you got a superstar, trade all your draft picks to get a number 2 for your superstar. That way you can put yourself in a position to win a championship. And when those guys are gone, yeah, you're going to suck for a couple years. You're going to suck for a couple years because you gave away your assets. But if you win a championship, it doesn't matter. The Lakers bet the farm on getting Anthony Davis. And what happened? They won a championship. Yeah, this year the whole team was marred by injuries, but it was still worth it. Why? Because you got a chip. Yeah, when LeBron retires and maybe AD leaves or requests a trade, you might suck for a little bit. But guess what? You got a ring. You got a ring. And if everybody comes back healthy next year and you retool the roster a bit, you're going to have a great chance to win another ring. And if that's 2 championships for all those draft picks, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? The draft is a crapshoot anyway, now more than ever. Especially in the NBA. And in the NFL, it's less of a crapshoot because you got more tape on a lot of these guys. But still, some guys are college guys but aren't pro guys. Some guys are college guys but aren't pro guys. And I feel sorry for a lot of the NFL cats, because they deserve to be making just as much money and playing just as well. But the NFL, y'all got literally the weakest NFL players. The NFL Players Union is the weakest players union in professional sports, and it's not even close. And I'm going to say that. It's of the 3 big sports, they have by far the weakest. Baseball has by far the strongest. The Major League Baseball owners do not fuck with the Players Union. They don't fuck with the Players Union at all. They don't take chances. They don't take shots because they know they do not want that smoke. The NFL Players Union could give a fuck about the Players Union. Could give a fuck about the Players Union. They take shots at the Players Union all the time. They cost y'all money all the time. And some of it's your own fault. And the people who should be the most pissed about the weakness of the NFL Players Union are the running backs. Because running backs, when you step into the NFL, they are the most likely to hit early. It's the most, running back is one of, if not the most translatable skill from college to the NFL. It's arguably the most translatable skill. It's the position that when you hit running, you usually hit early, and the way the NFL is structured and the way the NFL contracts are structured, you don't make real money until your second contract. And because of that, by the time most running backs hit their second contract, they're done. They're done, and you can't get that money anymore. So you're kind of screwed. But that's enough about it. This does put them kind of in championship contention in the AFC. Hopefully it'll move them up. I can't wait to see how this shakes out for this team. Now, I was right before the show, I found a quote about this whole the whole Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight. I didn't pay for it, but I did watch it. I wasn't paying for that shit. I didn't pay for it, but I did watch it. I didn't talk about this, but this fight this went exactly how I thought it was going to go. This went the distance. I don't know why people thought it wasn't going to go the distance. I don't know why people thought this was not going to go the distance or Floyd was going to knock him out. Floyd's not somebody who's got a lot of knockout power. And actually, I know people were complaining that Floyd didn't knock out Logan Paul. If you really watch that fight, Floyd actually did knock out Logan. He did knock him out, but he held him up. He knocked him out, but he held him up. He was like, hey, kid, come on, a couple more rounds, we got this. You could go the distance with Floyd Mayweather. And he did go the distance with Floyd. And, big ups to the kid. He went in there, and he threw a lot of punches. I think he threw 215 punches in this fight, all in the first 2 or 3 rounds. He was pretty much gassed by round 3. Floyd carried him for another 4 rounds or so. But I like the moxie of this kid getting into the ring with Floyd Mayweather and not getting completely destroyed. Mainly because Floyd didn't want to destroy him, because it really didn't do anything for Floyd. And I know people were getting into Floyd's face, why would you take this fight? Because I was at work and I was hearing, why would Floyd take this fight? Floyd, ladies and gentlemen, Floyd Mayweather is a businessman. He's a businessman. That's all Floyd is. Floyd is a businessman first, a fighter second. He's about making money. He's about getting the biggest money fights. And right now, this was a big money. Floyd made like $50 million on this fight. And this Logan Paul kid, I think he made about 10. Win, lose, draw. I think he made about $10 million on this fight. And Floyd made 50. What? This, people forget, this is a business. Not just, I love the gladiatorial spirit, but this is a business. And Floyd's a businessman. And he made $50 million on this fight. On an exhibition fight. He made $50 million. Hold on. Sorry for the interruption. Where was I? I was ranting about something. I believe I was ranting about Paul. Yes. The whole Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul. Like I said, Floyd is a businessman. He's a businessman. He's all about making money. And he's built himself like a fucking empire. And he's a G. He's a G. He's about making money. And whether he knocks out Logan Paul or nothing doesn't do anything for his career. It's an exhibition fight. If he lost, people tuned into this fight to see if Logan could get lucky and knock out Floyd. True fight fans knew Logan was ever so rarely going to touch him. Now, Logan did get a good shot in. He did hit Floyd once. He did get Floyd once, like in the earlier rounds. I'm going to say like the second round. He got Floyd once with a good shot, but he didn't really do much. Floyd, like, he pretty much, he carried this kid for 8 rounds. He carried him for 8 rounds, and big ups, kid got heart. He's got heart. He did get knocked out, but the kid's got heart. Now, as for these, like, Jake Paul, ripping Dana White, he's not wrong. He's not, I'm not the biggest Logan Paul fan, but Logan's not exactly wrong. Because UFC even playing themselves, hell, if you play the UFC game, the most, because I play the game and I love the game and I love mixed martial arts, but you play the game and, Floyd and the, like, most, because a portion of your winnings goes to your training camp. And then, depending on how long if like 6-week camp, like 50% of like your proceeds go to your training, like 50%, and then 5 weeks is 45%. I usually stick around 45%, so you can get that like I usually stick around 5-week fight camps, so you can stick around and get the fight hype to its highest value, and then you gotta do the promotion, and then you gotta do a lot of it, and then you gotta train. So you try not to overtrain. You try to get yourself into like peak condition, and then you fight. Usually the most my fighter makes is like about 3 point something, like 3.3 million, and that's when you at like the top of the game. You show up, and something like 2 million of that is like bonuses and for like promotion and like part of the pay-per-view buys, and the other portion of that is like because my fighter is at the point where he makes like 360,000 to show up and like 360,000 to win, somewhere around that. So that's what, about 700,000. That's $700,000 just to like show up and win, and then the other like 2.6 million is from like pay-per-view buys and promotion and all that, and sponsors and all that other shit. So he's right, and that's in the game, and the game is fairly accurate to how a lot of these guys get paid. The game is incredibly accurate to how much a lot of these guys get paid, and it's wild because a lot of these guys, because you see it for a lot of these guys, they show up whether you win or lose. And one of the issues is in the UFC, and Dana's right, and Jake is kind of right. If like much has been made about UFC underpaying fighters over the years, and some of it, and there's two ways to this. One of the reasons is UFC kind of underpaying these fighters because most of their fighters can't really promote themselves. Most of their top fighters are, first of all, not American. Most of their, I'm looking up their champions, and I think Kamaru Usman who is of African descent is like Kamaru Usman, who is of African like descent. He's a fantastic fighter. You got John Jones. John Jones, also another American fantastic fighter, is considered the pound for pound king. But here's the thing about John. John's a fantastic fighter, but I don't know, but most people don't actually like John. Most people don't like John. John's never been like that, the big draw most people think he is. You got flyweight Devinson. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's Brazilian. You got Aljamain Sterling. He's American. You got Alexander Volkas. I do not know how to. The featherweight champ Alexander. He's not American. You got the lightweight champion Charles Oliveira. He's Brazilian. You got Kamaru Usman. The welterweight champion Israel Adesanya. The middleweight champion Izzy right now is like the best. Is the UFC's biggest straw because he can fight. He can talk. He can fight. He can back it up. He can talk. Kamaru Usman can talk too, but Kamaru Usman's not the best like promoter. He's a great fighter, but he's not like the best promoter. And Izzy, he's a dominant fighter who talks shit and can back it up. Jan Blachowicz, the lightweight champion, the light heavyweight champion. Jan Blachowicz, Polish, not exactly a great fight promoter himself. You got Francis Ngannou, who's also not the greatest fight promoter. Ridiculous fighter. Same thing with Stipe Miocic, who was right behind him. And you look at the women's, you got Amanda Nunes, Brazilian, not the greatest talker. I mean, her English isn't great. It's good, it's not great, and she's not like the greatest promoter. Rose Namajunas is American, pretty chill, has a pretty chill personality. Not the biggest like rah, I'ma talk this shit up. Valentina Shevchenko, another dominant fighter, also not one of those people who's about to, talk this shit up. Amanda Nunes, pound for pound queen. She's the bantamweight and featherweight champion. And once again, she's not you don't have a lot of great, like, talkers. You don't have a lot of great guys in the UFC who can promote themselves. And that's one of the main problems with this whole UFC pay scale thing. A lot of these guys can't promote themselves. Like, if the reason why like Izzy can make, I don't know how much Izzy makes, but I'm assuming like his next contract comes up, Izzy's gonna make a shit ton of money. There's a reason why Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey and all those people made so much money made millions in the UFC. Wasn't just because they were dominant fighters, because they were great. They could promote themselves, and not a lot of these people could promote themselves like that. Not a lot of these people got that ability to talk like that, and that's one of the issues. Now, I do agree, UFC fighters need to get paid more money. You should not have a fighter making less than $1 million. Even your champions should not. Each of your champions, especially like your top stars, your champions should be making minimum $1 million to show up. You should be making 7 figures to show up. Not mid 6 figures, but you should be making like 7 figures to fucking show up. And even if it's low 7 figures, you still need to be making 7 figures to show up. I'm going to read you a quote from Jake Paul. I'm going for McGregor. I'm going for Mayweather. I'm going for all these guys. I want Kamaru Usman, Nate Diaz, but I'm not looking past Tyrone. That's Tyrone Woodley at all. There are a lot of names, but these UFC guys are all owned by Dana White. So who is Dana going to let out of his contract to get knocked out? He further said, I think there's moving forward that this is going to show that UFC fighters should be getting paid more. It's unfair. The UFC fighters don't get paid their fair share out of all sports. The percentage that owners get versus the athlete, they're the lowest. Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, that fight should happen. Dana White should pay them like $10 million each. He's right. He's taking their money. Another quote, he's taking their money. They're the ones making the content. They're the ones getting in the ring, risking their lives. Chris Weidman goes in, snaps his leg in half. What's that look like? He may never be able to fight again, provide food for his family. These fighters are risking their lives. You can quite literally die in the ring, and they need to be compensated more. He's right. Another quote, I'm a big proponent of that movement, being in control, just like music labels, same thing. These artists are getting owned and locked into these shitty contracts, and they don't know what to do, so fuck that, fuck Dana White. He's not wrong. He's not completely wrong. UFC fighters should be making more money. UFC fight, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of guys like Michael Venom Page. I think if Michael Venom Page went to the UFC, he would be fantastic because Michael Venom Page can promote himself. He's entertaining, but I think Page might actually make more money in Bellator because the endorsement money and Page can promote himself like some of these other cats can't. They don't know how to promote themselves like that, so Page might actually be making more money in. Page might be making more money in Bellator than he could make in the UFC. And another quote: "No one else can say shit to Dana. He'll just sideline them, and then they're fucked. I'm the only one that doesn't need Dana in the fight world. Everyone's scared of him. I don't give a fuck." And Jake, he can take this stance because he's not dependent on Dana White in any way, shape, or form. He's not depending on I'm not like Jake. Like I said, Jake doesn't need. I don't know how much Jake made. Like tens of millions in his last fight against what's his name, against Ben Askren. Ben Askren made more money in that fight than he has probably made in his entire career in mixed martial arts. I mean, you take all the money he's made in mixed martial arts, and then you take the money he just made against Jake Paul. I would bet everything I own he made more money in his fight against Jake Paul than he did in every fight he made in the UFC combined. And there is a reason why Ben Askren, after he got knocked out, was out here smiling against, was out here walking back to the ring and he was smiling, is because he may have gotten knocked out by a YouTuber, but guess what? He made more money in that fight than he made in his entire career combined. He made tens of millions in that fight. I'm gonna check I'm gonna check how much these two guys made. Let's see. Record. Yeah. With his victory against former. I want to see how much Ben Askren, Jake Paul reveals how much money. I agree. Mash considers buying a yak. 3 penny the process. Paul made it an initial $690 as part of his purchase for the event, which could increase if his claim about pay-per-view buys is correct. Posted on, he wrote 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, 75 million generated, alongside a picture of American dollar notes. Let's see. Paul couldn't help but take a swipe. And you see who said pre-fight he would make $1 million bet that Baskin beats the boxing prospect. He actually fought with I bet $1 million he loses this fight. I'm trying to find out how much Ben Askren made for this fucking fight. I can't. Snoop Dogg overjoyed having claimed he made a bet to the tune of $200 million. Yo, Snoop was a gem on this. I don't know how much money did these two guys make? Paul base earning for the fight was while Askren took a minimum of $500,000 home. Bet money he's never taken that much home. Bet money he's never taken that much up over his. Yo, that was he made $500,000 to show up. Estimates his 3 UFC outings a total of roughly 830. He made $500,000 on one fight. He made $500,000 just to show up, and that's not even the pay-per-view buys. And that's not even like I said, in his UFC career, made $830,000 and made $500,000. That's his $500,000 minimum. With the pay-per-view buys of that fight, yo, he had to have made at least 7 figures. He had to have made at least 7. He had to have made like 2. I would suggest he probably made somewhere around 2 million, maybe, if I had to guess. He had to make at least. Jake said he made 8 figures, about that, meaning he netted at least $10 million in his pocket. According to that, equates $6.5 million. It's unclear how much of the company's payout is likely to be incredibly high. The broadcaster said Jake is an investor in yak. This fight with former NFL player Jake said he made 8 figures in his fight against Nate Robinson. He definitely made 7 figures. Ben Askren definitely made 7 figures in his fight with Jake Paul, and that's more than he made in his entire UFC career. So, like I said, Ben made money. And UFC, and Ben made that much money not being a household name, not being an absolute star. Guys like Izzy and Usman and Ngannou, guess what? None of those guys make that much more just to show up. None of those guys make that much more just to show up. They really don't. He may have made $500,000. He made $500,000 to show up, not show up and win. To show up. Can you imagine that? Israel Adesanya probably makes like $300,000 to $400,000, somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 just to show up. I don't know what his initial contract was with the UFC. I'm assuming he's probably already re-signed. Actually, he might, because usually UFC does like a lot of 4, 5, 6 fight deals. So I'm assuming he either has or either will sign a new contract soon. So Izzy's probably going to be somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000 to make, and he's the biggest star in UFC. While Ben Askren is a guy most people in the fight outside of like the MMA like fight world don't really know, and he made $500,000 just to show up to the Jake Paul fight. I mean, he's not wrong. Jake's not wrong, and UFC fighters do need to get paid more, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Now, back to the NBA, ladies and gentlemen. The NBA playoffs are in full swing 30 minutes into the show, and I'm finally talking about the NBA. Now, did I talk about the Lakers already? I believe I talked about the Lakers already in my last show, so I'm not really going to puff into this one. But the Clippers managed to not clip. They were down 3-2. And managed to win games 6 and 7. Game 6 in Dallas and game 7 on their own home court. The only team to win a home game this entire series. The only game won by the home team in this entire fucking series. Luka Magic showed up in a big way. He was 17 for 30 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, 7 rebounds, 14 assists to go on with 46 points. Tim Hardaway Jr. showed up in game 6. Could not show up in game 7. I think he was kind of gassed. Kristaps Porzingis, he only had 16 points, 11 rebounds. Dorian Finney-Smith, 18 points. Boban had 14 points. Nobody has showed up. Nope. This was Luka doing Luka and nobody else, and he could really get no other help. The trick for Dallas is going to be able to find Luka a second guy, because Kristaps isn't that guy. Kristaps is not that guy. I don't know what's happened to him. I know what's happened to him. His injuries are insane, but Kristaps is not the guy for Luka. He's not the second option. Luka needs a guy who does not need the ball in his hands per se. Somebody who can dominate with the ball in their hands, but somebody who can take the pressure off Luka. But he also needs a guy who can spot up and shoot. Like I think a Bradley Beal might be perfect for Luka, because Brad can work off screens, He's great off the ball, and he can handle the rock. He can take over games. He's proven that in Washington. So I would love to see like Bradley Beal in there with Luka, but I'm not overly like ecstatic about it. I'm not ecstatic about it. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard showed up. Paul George didn't have a great shooting night, but he still had 22 points, had 10 rebounds. He didn't have a great shooting night, but he was aggressive, had 10 free throws. Kawhi Leonard showed up big, 28 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. Nick Batum, serviceable, god damn it. Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson. If this was last year, they lose this series because, hell, Luke Kennard and Terrence Mann. Ivica Zubac got benched. Patrick Beverly didn't play. Luke Kennard gave you 14 minutes after he had played, I want to say like 5 or 6 minutes all series. Gave you 11 points, hit 3 threes. The T. adjusted in the middle of the series and essentially sat 2 of his starters, and he went small ball, and essentially, he played Boban kind of off the floor. He didn't play Boban off the floor, but he made Boban less effective with the small ball that they played, and the Dallas Mavericks couldn't adjust to not playing Boban in this series, and it was essentially Luka against the Clippers. It was Luka against the Clippers, and if anybody else on that team had showed up in a big way, the Dallas Mavericks are in the second round about to play the Utah Jazz instead of the Clippers going to the second round. But for all the Clipper fans out there, this series does not imbue me with confidence. If I'm a Clippers fan, this series does nothing for me. Hold on, let me get a drink. Sorry. But if I'm a Clippers fan, this series does not imbue me with confidence. I said this series was going to go 7, and it did, and the Clippers won in 7, which I did initially promise, which I did initially vow, I think. But the way this series went, like I said, does not view me with confidence. The team they're about to face, the Utah Jazz, are a better team than Dallas. They're a better defensive team than Dallas. Their offense, although they don't have a potent scorer like Luka, because Donovan Mitchell is a great scorer, but he's not efficient like Luka's efficient, but they have a better all-around offense. They're gonna score with the Clippers, and they're a better defensive team than the Clippers. They are a better defensive team than the Clippers, and because the Clippers could not give Luka nothing. I'm not talking because you can't stop great scores. You can't stop great scores, but you can slow them down. But your best defender can make Kobe score 30 points, and instead of doing it on like 15 shots, he does it on 25 shots. That extra 10 shots helps. He's going to get his 30, but my job as a defender is to make that 30 as inefficient as possible. That is your job as a defender. Kobe going to get his 30. LeBron going to get his 30. Kevin Durant's going to get his 30. Your job as a defender is to make that 30 points as inefficient as humanly possible, and they couldn't do it against Luka, so nothing makes me believe they're going to be able to do it against Mitchell. Nothing. Now, the Denver Nuggets also closed out the Portland Trailblazers. Now, the whole Portland Trailblazers situation, they need to blow up the core of this team. They don't need to blow up the team. Don't get me wrong. They do not need to blow up this team, but they do need to blow up this core. CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, one of them have to go. One or both of them have to go. You have to get Dame another guy. Dame is about to start, I want to say, a 3-4 year extension for like $150 million or something like that. Yo, let me look that up real quick. Where's my sports contract? There's my sports contracts. Hold on. We are looking for the... Where's the hell are the Portland Trailblazers? There they are. Damn it. I fucking hate when that happens. There we go. Portland Trailblazers. Dame Lillard. Yeah. 2021. I believe he's about to start. Yeah, upcoming contract extension. 4 years, $176 million. He's about to make $39 million next year, 42 the year after that, 45 the year after that, and 48 the year after that. And then he will be an unrestricted free agent when he's 35 years old. Now, there's been a lot of talk about guys not needing to win championships and this whole championship talk. First of all, for all these talking heads talking about why do guys need to win championship, no, it's your fault. That's what I would love to tell all of these talking heads and all these writers, Bomani Jones and Dominic Foxworth and Skip Bayless, and why do guys need to win championships and all that. You could be a great player without a championship. There's a reason why guys like Chris Webber and Tracy McGrady and Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and John Stockton and Karl Malone and Patrick Ewing and Dominique Wilkins and all those guys. There's a reason why all those guys do not get the respect they deserve in the hierarchy of professional basketball, and it's your fault. It's these writers' fault, these talking heads on television, and some of it, and actually, I was gonna put some of it on Jordan, and it's not Jordan's fault. Jordan was dominant. What's his name? Was it Krause? Jerry Krause built a team around Michael Jordan, a championship team around Michael Jordan, and he won 6 championships in 8 years. He won 6 championships in 8 years, 6-0 in the NBA Finals. And when Jordan did that, it became all about championships. It's not our fault. It's not the fans' fault that it became all about championships. It's the writers and the talking heads and the sportscasters. It's y'all fault it became all about championships. It is y'all fault it became all about championships. It's not our fault. It is not our fault as fans that it became all about championship. And if you didn't win a championship, it tarnishes your career. Russell Westbrook is a player that when he retires, because Russ isn't going to win a championship, but when he retires, he's going to go into that Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, the type of shit when like the casual fans forget just how good this guy was. Just how good he was. He was not a great shooter. He wasn't exactly a great scorer, but he played the game in a way that has never been seen before, made triple doubles seem pedestrian, make it seem like just everybody can do it. If everybody could average a triple double, everybody would average a triple double. I think if LeBron had the proper people around him, if he had a more well-rounded team in his earlier years where he didn't have to take so much of the scoring load, he probably could have averaged a triple-double. But Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double while being his team's best scorer, his team's best rebounder, and his team's best passer. How many people can say that? He did that in Oklahoma City. Now in Washington, he didn't have to do that. He could just focus on rebounding and passing, and he didn't have to focus on scoring. Because you had a phenomenal scorer in Bradley Beal on the other side of the court. But that's not our fault. It's y'all fault. Y'all made it all about championships. When Allen Iverson retired, we didn't give AI the respect he deserves. Tracy McGrady is one of the best players the NBA has ever seen. One of the most talented players the NBA has ever seen. People forget, Tracy McGrady is like the architect of like the perfect player you would want. He was long. He was athletic. He could shoot. He could play defense. He could pass. Underrated passer in McGrady. He could shoot off the dribble. He could catch and shoot. He had a killer instinct. He could hit big shots. He couldn't hit. He didn't have like the killer. He had like the championship playoff killer instinct. If you were to transport, because McGrady was a little bit bigger than Kobe. He was a couple inches bigger, a little stronger, a little longer. If you could put Kobe's mentality in McGrady's body, I think that guy is the greatest player ever. That guy could arguably go down as the greatest player ever. But when people talk about their top 10, their top 15, their top 20, their top 30, nobody mentions McGrady. McGrady doesn't get mentioned in that list. We talk about the greatest little men to play in the NBA. Allen Iverson's on that list, but because Allen Iverson doesn't have a ring, not a lot of people talk about him. John Stockton is the NBA's all-time assist leader by a wide margin, and nobody really talks about him. when we talk about the greatest players of all time. Karl Malone, the NBA's second all-time leading scorer, who's probably going to end up like third. He's going to end up most likely third on that list when LeBron passes him. Nobody really talks about him. The reason we talk about LeBron James and the GOAT debate is because LeBron James has 4 championships. He's been to 10 NBA finals. In the prime of his career, LeBron James went 8 straight years in the NBA finals, and LeBron's not in his prime anymore. Now this year, a lot of injuries hit this team, and LeBron's going to get a lot of flack this year, but a lot of injuries hit this team. And for all the talking heads talking about Anthony Davis and his injury and why, and I know especially Chuck, you know, talking about calling him street clothes and then trying to bash the Lakers medical staff for letting him play. This ain't on the Lakers medical staff, and it's not on the fans. It's on you. It's on guys like you, Chuck, calling him soft. And when he goes out there and tries to prove you wrong, now you want to say the Lakers medical staff shouldn't have let him play. Shut up, Chuck. Shut up. It's your fault that you let him out there to play. And it's your fault that he went out there to play even though everybody knew he wasn't ready to go. And you could see it from the moment he walked on the court. He was not going to make it out of that quarter. He was not a single jump. And he wasn't going to make it out of that quarter. Trying to run, he was not going to make it out of that quarter. And it's irritating how that goes in the NBA. And I am so tired of the NBA writers. The NBA like MVP discussion is one of the discussions that irritates me the most because it's because the other sports usually have it right. The other sports in baseball is a stats-driven league. You got the best stats. It just so happens that in Major League Baseball it doesn't have the problem of voter fatigue because usually the guy who has the best stats usually changes almost every single year. And if you got the best stats, the baseball writers don't mind giving you the award multiple times. Baseball is a stats-driven league. I don't know much about the hockey MVP because I don't really pay attention to that. But the NFL MVP, usually the same thing. It's usually a different guy, so they don't have an issue with like voter fatigue. But they don't mind giving you the award 3-4 times in a short span. Like J.J. Watt has won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards in like a 5-year span. Aaron Donald did the same thing. Usually, there's usually one guy there's a reason. The only reason Drew Brees doesn't have an MVP is that even though he was more consistent than some of those guys, there was always a guy who just had a better season. Drew Brees would throw 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, but there'd be a guy who threw 45 touchdowns with 5,000 yards. Or another guy who threw 50 touchdowns with 5,000 yards, and that guy would get the MVP. Aaron Rodgers did it. Brady did it. Manning did it. All those Mahomes did it. They would all have great seasons like that. But in NFL, the guy who has the best stats usually wins the award. Let me phrase that. It's not the guy who has the best stats. It's usually the quarterback who has the best stats usually wins the award. Occasionally a running back. I don't think a wide receiver's ever won the award. A defensive player probably is never going to win the award. That's why the Defensive Player of the Year award exists. But in the NBA is the only major popular league that suffers from voter fatigue, and it's so annoying. If the guy's the best player in the league, to hell with voter fatigue. To hell with give him the award. If he's the best player, give him the award. Check your feelings at the door. That's what happened with LeBron James and Derrick Rose. LeBron James should have won 5 straight. He should have won 5 straight. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a fantastic year this year, but there was no chance in hell he was going to win the MVP this year. No chance whatsoever that he was going to win the MVP of the year, even though he had won the last 2 prior. There was no chance he was going to win 3. LeBron should have won 5 straight, and that MVP that Derrick Rose won is going to be kind of a black mark. Not because Derrick Rose is probably going to be the only MVP to not make the Hall of Fame. And if he does make the Hall of Fame, it's going to be borderline at best. Derrick Rose is most likely going to be the only MVP in the history of professional basketball to not make the Hall of Fame. And that's because all these writers got so in their feelings about LeBron James going to Miami that they decided to punish him by not giving him the MVP award he deserved. And then the next year, they punished him again. Even though he was by far the MVP, they refused to give him the Defensive Player of the Year award. They gave it to Marc Gasol, who wasn't even first team all defense that year. How you gonna give a guy who wasn't even the best defensive player at his position the Defensive Player of the Year award instead of giving it to the guy who was clearly the best defensive player in the league? And I'll tell you why they did it. Because they were still angry about him going to Miami, and they refused to we can't let him do something Jordan did. And they also give Lifetime Achievement MVP awards. I love Kobe Bryant, but Kobe's one MVP is a Lifetime Achievement MVP. Everybody looked up 12 years into his career and realized what Kobe doesn't have an MVP, and they gave him that MVP. And that MVP probably should have went to LeBron. I think that's the year Kobe won the championship. That was either his first or his second. That was either his fourth or his fifth ring. I don't remember which one. But you look up like 12 years in and Kobe doesn't have an MVP. Let's give Kobe an MVP. His team is the best, even though he didn't have the best season. I hate that about NBA writers and the guys who vote for the award. It's so goddamn irritating. But back to Dame Lillard. I think he needs. I don't think he's not gonna leave Portland. He's not gonna leave Portland with the he's about to make like 4 years, almost $200 million. He's not leaving Portland anytime soon. But Portland needs to get him a number 2, and CJ and Yusef got to go. One or both of these guys got to go. I'm sorry, I like both of them, but Dame needs a true number 2. He needs a true number 2. Now let's get to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. This is a series I thought would go 7 and the Bucks would win. That's not going to happen. Unless the Bucks do something drastic, that's not going to happen. James Harden went down in this game in the first quarter. Not even the first minute of game 1. And the Nets still essentially beat the brakes off the Bucks in game 1. Brooklyn won by 9 in game 1. The game wasn't that close. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I said Giannis was going to average like 35 points in this series. And through 2 games, I believe he's averaging about, let's see. Nope. He had last night in Brooklyn, Giannis settled for a lot. Instead of punishing the Nets in the middle, he settled for a lot of jump shots, and he only had 18 points. And in game 1, he had 34? Brook Lopez had 19. Chris Middleton has yet to show up in this series. Drew Holiday I wouldn't say Drew has yet to show up, but he's not exactly playing well. And Drew's not a scorer, but Chris Middleton is a scorer. And in game 2, 7 for 20. And in game 1, 6 for 23. Chris Middleton has yet to show up. He's supposed to be this team's closer, their scorer, and he has yet to show up on the stage. I don't know if the lights are too bright or if the Nets are just playing really good defense. And I don't think the Nets are playing great defense. I just think the Bucks are settling, especially Giannis, settling for a lot of jump shots. Yo, Giannis got to get out there and punish the Nets. The Nets do not have front line, great front line help, but you got to punish them. And for some reason, fucking Blake Griffin, I think Nick Wright said this earlier this morning or said it yesterday. Detroit might file a class action lawsuit against Blake Griffin because Blake Griffin is showing out. Game 1, 18 points, 14 rebounds. Blake Griffin is the reason why Brooklyn won game 1. He's the reason why Brooklyn won game 1. He has showed a resurgence. He's I may not be LA Clippers Blake Griffin, but I'm early Detroit Blake Griffin right now. And he is balling out. He is balling out in Brooklyn. I didn't think he'd be that big of a factor, but he has proven to be an incredible factor in Brooklyn. And the Brooklyn Nets blew the doors off the Milwaukee Bucks from the first quarter on. 36-19, 29-22, 30-24, 30-21. this series is going to be incredibly short-lived. I think this series ends probably in 5. With the way the Bucks are playing right now, the Bucks may get one game at home, but right now it looks like this series is going to go 5, or maybe even a sweep. Because James Harden's probably re-aggravated his hamstring, so he may not play the rest of this series unless the Nets get into trouble. If the Nets go back to Brooklyn and it's tied 2-2, you might see James Harden in Game 5. But if this goes back to Brooklyn 3-1, it's over. You're not going to see James Harden into the Eastern Conference Finals against whoever wins between the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. Which brings us to the Atlanta Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. Trae Young he's got swag for days with this team. This team has adopted Trae Young's, like his swag, his swagger, his gumption. Trae puffing his chest out, had 35 points, 10 assists in Game 1. Bogdan Bogdanovic, 21 points. John Collins, 21 points. Clint Capella, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Kevin, Herter, 15 points off the bench. Joel Embiid did have 39 in Game 1. Ben Simmons had 17 in Game 1. Seth Curry had 21. Tobias Harris had 20. Matthias Thybulle came off the bench with 10. It seems like nobody can stop Trae Young right now. It seems like absolutely nobody can stop Trae Young right now. And I hope that's not the case. Because I think Game 2 is tonight on TNT. And Game 1 of the Utah Clippers series is also tonight on TNT. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Philly bounces back, because Atlanta is playing with like a ferocity. I didn't think Atlanta would make it out the first round against the Knicks. I thought the Knicks would win in 7. Atlanta beat the hell out of them, got them out of there in 5. Crushed them. Absolutely. I think, they got them out there in 5. Absolutely crushed them. I thought that series might have gone 6. Nope. Or 7. Nope. Went 5. Trae Young shushing the crowd. And you had Bogdan in this game shushing the Philly crowd. The Sixers need to get up. Sixers need to get up. They should be dominating this team. This series should go 4-1, 4-2 at the worst. But the way everybody's playing right now, looks like this might go 7. And that is not good, especially with the way that the Nets are dominating Milwaukee. Because if the Nets get Milwaukee out in 5, you need to get Philly out in 5. You cannot waste any energy on Atlanta. Not energy like this. Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix, their first round 2 in like 11 years, first playoff series win in 11 years, first playoff appearance in 11 years. They outplayed the Denver Nuggets from essentially the second half on. Chris Paul, I want to say, had like 14 points in the second quarter. Not the second quarter, in the fourth quarter. Devin Booker, 21 points. DeAndre Ayton, 20 points. Mikal Bridges, 14 points. Dre Crowder, 14 points. Cameron Payne off the bench, 7 points. Torrey Craig, 9 points. These are the Phoenix Suns. I said this. The Phoenix Suns and the LA Lakers, to me, were the two best teams in the Western Conference. And I think with the LA Lakers, with the Lakers out and the Clippers instilling no confidence whatsoever, I think the Phoenix Suns are going to be the team that represents the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. They're the team. They're my pick to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. I think they're going to get past Denver. Probably get past Denver in, I want to say 6. I think they get past Denver in 6. That's my pick. Nikola Jokic is going to win the MVP. He's going home this series. Jokic doesn't really do well against athletic big men like DeAndre Ayton, but DeAndre Ayton does very well against Nikola Jokic. Nikola was 10 for 23 in this game. He did have 22 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. Michael Porter Jr. had 15 points. Aaron Gordon played well, gave you 18 points. But I'm not overly enthusiastic. If the Nuggets still had Jamal Murray, I'd be all about this. But they don't. And I don't know if they have the offense to match Phoenix. And Chris Paul has completely changed this team in a couple months. In a couple months, Chris Paul has taken this team that was good last year, making strides forward to being one of, if not the favorite, to come out of the Western Conference. And a championship would move him up the all-time ladder to probably one of the 5 best point guards of all time. He may even be one of the 5 best point guards of all time, but without a championship, I don't know if guys are going to give him the credit that he deserves. I think he probably moves ahead of John Stockton on the list, on like the all-time point guard list. He'll still be behind Zeke and Magic Johnson, but he may move to like third or fourth on this list if he wins a championship, especially with this Phoenix Suns team. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of the SJP File Sports Report. I am your host, SJP. Remember to like, subscribe, share the episode, share with your friends, let people know that we got a new sports podcast in the ether out here, and let them know that, hey, I'm doing work, I'm grinding, I'm trying to get this podcast thing to blow up. Just like I said, like, share, and subscribe. Once again, Ellis Clear My Mind playing us out.
I just can't let you go. Lord knows that I've tried to. You said I was the only one. No one likes being lied to. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all the bridges between us.